True Talk, brought to you by TRULAND Equipment. Join us as we explore cutting-edge machinery, groundbreaking technology, and inspirational stories from the field.
From the dedicated efforts of our team members to the triumphs and challenges of our farmers, True Talk brings you along every step of the way.
Whether you're a seasoned agriculturalist or simply curious about the industry, tune in to discover the fascinating intersection of technology, agriculture, and green machines.
True Talk, cultivating true conversations. Welcome back to True Talk. Today we have a special guest. I'll let him introduce himself because honestly I don't really even know what his official title is at the moment, but it's Jordan here, Courtney.
Hi everyone.
I'm Josh. Hello, everyone.
Hi, I'm Matt Lefeld from the Coldwater location. I am a CST in the service side.
Are you still a CST?
Currently, I'm still a CST.
One of our team members.
Yes.
Had to beg him pretty hard to come onto the podcast.
Yeah, well, once he goes over to service,
Yeah, probably won't hear from him much anymore, will we?
we better. We'll still keep you in the chat.
Yeah, I was wondering if I can stay in the chat.
Yeah.
I hope so. So Matt's a dude, right? Matt knows stuff.
That's a dude.
Yeah, he's a dude. He knows stuff, and we like to have people that know stuff on our podcast. He's one of the people that definitely can give us an answer when we have a question.
I have heard that is one of the factors of a successful podcast is that people have to know things and then talk about them.
That's right.
So, yeah.
Well, I'll try my best.
You're on your way there, Matt.
No pressure.
So, Matt, you want to give us a little bit of the rundown of your history with TRULAND, or you've been around long enough prior to TRULAND?
Yeah, I've been here a little over 20 years. Worked in the parts department. I worked in service as far as lawn and garden department, and then I moved to the ag side, started working with the large ag equipment. Took on to the pre-delivery side of equipment, started learning everything there, all technology, especially late 2000s when technology really started to come on board with equipment, whether it's yield monitoring, yield mapping on combines, auto track, section control, everything that just kind of kicked in there. So that's where I learned on my own. You just kind of self-taught going through, plus training, and kind of led me into this IS role where we are all at. Just loved that technology and enjoyed it.
Probably should have asked him what he hasn't done in a dealership. It would have been shorter, probably.
Sales.
haven't you done?
I haven't done sales.
Okay.
Although part of this role sometimes feels like you're selling, but yet you're not doing all the the final paperwork.
We're all salesmen.
I'm okay with the selling and support and how those go hand in hand. That paperwork, though, nobody likes to do paperwork. No. I'm okay with missing out on that.
That's when you hand it off, right?
Yeah, it's nice. You get to build customer relationships, know their operations, truly learn what recommendations to make for them, where they need to upgrade or improve. And then, you get to hand it off, like Josh said. Kind of the best of both worlds.
That is a great benefit to just talk to the customers. You learn their operation. You know what equipment they're getting. You work on their equipment, and you can just talk to them and entice them maybe into upgrades or this or that on their equipment, and they trust what you have to say.
Yeah.
Didn't our boss start out in lawn and garden too? I think he did. I think Andy did.
He was a wash bay man, I thought. I thought that was where he first started.
Eventually, I know he was in lawn and garden pretty early, but he did jump to sales at some point. Yeah. So why not sales?
Sales, it was an avenue of thinking, just service or sales. I've grown up in service. My dad was in service here, and he retired about 2 years ago.
Really?
I've just had the act for working with the equipment, which I know in today's world now, the sales side, the pressure of going out, working with that piece of equipment that you've sold is way more on their plate now than what it used to be. So
yeah, a good salesman was involved in startups or should be involved in startups, likely. So,
but so should service, and so should integrated solutions, and every department is involved in that, quite frankly.
Correct. Yep. Parts. In IS, you've learned that you're kind of, I call it maybe the glue between service, parts, sales, because you got to try to bring all that together and make sure everybody's on the same page.
Yeah, which is so funny because last episode, so we had Carrie on, the intern, and she kind of spoke briefly about how one of her final presentation requirements was to define every department, kind of give a brief overview of what she did. And she specifically said, I don't really know how I'm going to sum that up. So we need to look up that definition and see what she actually said that we were responsible for, because it is hard to define.
Yes.
I say you take a dealership and you subtract sales and then parts and then service, half of service, because we do some service too. And then everything that's left over is probably IS.
Probably right. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So we're just coming out of our
Combine clinic season.
harvest clinics. That's right. Fall harvest clinics.
Yeah.
Hard to believe.
Yeah. Harvest came up quick. Yeah. I feel like we were just talking about wheat harvest, which also snuck up quick on us this year.
Right, it did. Yeah.
It was like planting ended. Oh, wait, we're harvesting wheat now. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep, the wheat did turn early. Caught, I think, the service department a little off guard. I think they had to switch gears a little bit and work through the machines that they had on their list to get through, work through which ones needed done more than the others. But, yeah, I don't know what happened in the month of July. I think it disappeared.
It did disappear. And you're right, everybody was caught off guard by the early wheat harvest for sure. It came really, really quick, which is good, though. It means people can get double crop beans out, and it was a good situation. But, yeah, summer has flown by. And with the extended planting season we had, we kind of knew that this growing season was just going to be from one thing to the next with very few breaks. So we are 30 days away from running beans somewhere.
Yes, we are.
Probably over in your area.
For sure. So why do we have Matt on the podcast today?
Well, I thought it'd be me. Should I take credit for this? We'll see how this episode goes, and then we'll see who takes credit for it. Somebody, somewhere along the way, decided that it would be a good idea to have... So Matt spoke at our combine clinics, and he was responsible for our combine walkarounds and calling out some of the physical material versus tech. So I thought it'd be a good idea for everybody who couldn't make it or who wants to hear it again. I definitely need to hear. I'm like that 7-time listener learner. Need to hear things 7 times before it really sticks. So I thought it'd be a good idea to have you on and kind of not only talk about that, but talk about, the year-long prep that is harvest season.
And I've always been a big advocate for inspections too. I think when you talk to growers that use a combine inspection program, they'll be the first ones to tell you they love being able to go through a harvest season with very few problems on their machine. So give me your kind of insights on that as well in terms of inspections and how you view those, particularly with your impending move back into the service department.
Yeah, so inspections on combines, some guys like to just get right out of harvest, blow off their machine, schedule it. Maybe they pre-scheduled and said, hey, as soon as I'm done, I want it to come up to your shop, have you go through it, and repair, obviously, whatever you find, just so they know what they've got in expenses already leading either into the end of the year or into the first part of next year. We run programs through the winter, usually try to entice the customers to get their combines on a list. Do they have wheat? Do they not have wheat? That kind of moves and shuffles things around on the list to make priorities as far as the machines to get done before wheat harvest. So, yeah, everything we can do to line up how much work do we have in our forecast throughout the year leading up all the way to fall harvest. And it seems like no matter what, we are still working on combines all the way to the end of when harvest actually begins, fall harvest. There's always a pretty good slew of machines that just kind of roll in. You got the ones scheduled, and you've got the ones that just kind of, let's see what the planting season goes through. Let's see what our growing season looks like, and then we'll make that decision.
I know that we even have delivery dates of, we're cutting it close. They are still a week from delivery, haven't left the factory. So, and when you talk PDI, all of that, we're, like you said, it's going to be an all year, right to the last minute, down to the wire.
Yep, because the service department, they're the ones that work on the combines and the harvesting equipment with its heads too. They're not just working on customer equipment. So yeah, like you said, new machines, watching and filtering when those are rolling in. Sold machines, so there's, whether it's equipment on our lot or equipment that customers pick up from somewhere else that want us to go through it. So that's always added equipment that's always not foreseen.
It's never going to change.
Nope. So it's been that way for as long as I can remember. Yep.
And it does seem weird. I've always kind of said it's kind of weird we ought to have our harvest clinics in the spring and our planting clinics in the fall, right? Because the reality is we go through all these things that guys need to do to get their machines ready, but we are, really, really close to harvest, and that these are things that they probably should have been thinking about or doing, a few months prior. But yeah, I love the idea. And the same way with planters, I love the ideas of guys pulling their combine out of the field, blowing it off, and taking it into the shop and saying, hey, let's get this thing ready. That's the perfect time. Let's get this thing ready for next year.
Mm-hmm. The way I look at clinics is it's not usually, what do I got to look over on my machine yet and fix. Usually I hope that they have had us either work on it or they've already done some work prior to putting it away at the end of the season, or where clinics are mainly just a refresher. We're spending a lot of time in clinics now just going over the technology side and walking around machines or through different aspects of maybe some things we can add to the machine to make it perform better, aftermarket type stuff. The pucks, the performance upgrade kits to enhance machines, things like that, versus actually I got a week's worth of work to do this machine, all the service work, everything else.
And settings, right? Daily maintenance and settings and adjustments and things like that as well.
Right. Yep, daily maintenance stuff, just refresher, really, reminders.
Which I feel like even now, a lot of those settings and adjustments, we're rolling that more into technology. I mean, we talked Combine Advisor and then moving into the model year 25 machine, which we actually have 2 machines this year in our possession. So we were talking a lot about those settings and then the difference between Combine Advisor and then how we're going to see that change and improve in the future. And I mean, those are settings that we would talk a great deal about before. That was Matt's department. It's kind of moving more, getting away from that because it's going back to IS.
Yeah, I mean, before I was in an IS role before, I guess maybe your IS was probably even a terminology for the department. I mean, that was in the service side. So as a technician or someone that worked on the pre-delivery of your machine, I went out and field started. And that's how you got used to knowing how the machine worked, how to set the machine, go through everything. So yeah, I would go out, field start, go through the Combine Advisor type stuff, help make adjustments, get out, look on the ground, work through different things.
So let's take us through that. Go ahead and take us through that. Like, walk us through it.
So every farm's a little different. Depends on, are they ready to go to the field or are they not? Do they have the data in the screen? So there's always little things here and there. So yeah, usually I entice them to just start harvesting, get the end of the field usually opened up. That way when we get rolling, we can actually start to check things out, make adjustments that way. You got general guidelines as far as where you're setting machine for the crop. You start harvesting there, make a round or two, get out, take a look what's on the ground. Take a look at what the monitor's telling you, look at what your grain loss is telling you, and just work from there. So obviously back several years ago, we didn't have maybe some of the resources we do now on machines. And everybody got accustomed to how they wanted to set a machine and run a machine. They could listen to it, they could hear the machine, they kind of knew if I was overloading it, if I wasn't. Or today's machines, the cabs are a lot quieter. Your RPMs are different as far as reading on the corner post and what you're used to on the older machines too. So to roll right in, I guess, with maybe some of the technology of today, using like mobile apps to help with grain loss calculators, helping set up machine settings for the type of crops, which is also in the display itself with Combine Advisor.
Yeah, so you mentioned mobile apps, and I definitely want to get further into that. So Equipment Mobile is a big John Deere push, I would say.
It is.
But there are a lot of benefits. It's not something that they're just throwing out there and saying, hey, use this with no real benefit to the customer. So do you use it? How do you advise that your customers use it? And how does that help in some of those day-to-day maintenance routines or adjustments for the customer when they might not be able to, you have a lot of customers, so you might not be able to get out to them right at that moment.
Yeah. So the Equipment Mobile app, if the guys got the Op Center mobile app downloaded, go ahead and download this Equipment Mobile app, put it right next to the Op Center one on your phone. It's a great way. It ties right in with your Op Center, so any connected machines that's got a active JD Link MTG on it, you'll be able to pull that information You got access to parts catalogs. You got access to operator's manual. You got access to...
So you don't have to open the plastic.
That's correct. So yeah, you don't have to devalue the book by opening the plastic.
Correct.
Whether it's a combine, you've got grain loss, you've got inside or outside machine adjustments, sprayers, they've got tip calculators, tank mix calculators, tractors, they've got ballast calculators. So if you're questioning on whether you to add more weight or not, get your overall weight of the machine. Just some really useful information that I never really knew was on there until you start kind of actually messing around with it.
It's unbelievable when you start digging into it how far it goes, right? And I like how it will walk you through various steps of light maintenance and checking things.
Yeah, as far as maintenance goes, you can create maintenance plans on all your equipment. So you can add notes, you can say, I've done this or done that or whatever hour interval you want it to be, you can add that plan right in there.
Yeah. Or for some reason, you had something break in an unexpected manner, you can take note of that and, see how far you are off from your next, like you said, maintenance plan or your service interval. So yeah, I think that is a great tool just to keep people organized, especially, there's a lot of moving parts. So it's one less thing that you have to worry about and it's available in the palm of your hand. Yeah. And I love that it ties directly in your op center. So you're not worried about adding your serial numbers into 17 different places and making sure that, all of your equipment's correct. And if you go in there and use a generalized piece of equipment, it works, but you have to answer 112 questions. I kid you not. There's probably 112. A little too extensive sometimes, but.
Yep. And it's got a nice feature as far as you can take a picture of the barcode, serial number on the machine, and it adds it right into the list. And it adds it right in your op center list. So your equipment that's in op center,
I didn't know
it
that.
adds that. So
I didn't either. I just learned something
if
new.
it's a machine that doesn't have an MTG on it, that's fine. Just it'll add that machine into your list of equipment.
Personalizes it for you, which has its benefits.
Yeah.
You just have to know where to find the correct serial number.
Yes, sometimes those can be tricky to find, and it's evolving. It's going to lead towards software updates too. So machine controller software updates. There's a little bit of it right now on certain machines. It's going to lead into more customer based, being able to update their controllers.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say every controller is going to be available because some today we can't do remotely ourselves. We have to actually go out and hook a computer to it and do that update, but it's the start.
Again, kind of going along that lines. It's not that every single thing needs to be done by the customer, but I think it is a good call out that all of this is available at everybody's fingertips, because I think that we kind of get a bad rep sometimes about gatekeeping some information. And it's not that we're keeping it from customers. It's just that it might not be available in the place that you think it should be available or would expect it to be. So in this instance, you have all of this material and information available at your fingertips. You just have to know to download the app.
Sure, and it's typically been easier for people to go into their contacts and probably call the dealer to ask those questions, but it's probably an underutilized app.
Oh, it for sure is.
By a long ways. And I think if customers would try it out, they'd be amazed at what's at their fingertips. And again, nobody wants to open an operator's manual. We joke about it, but they're a pain. Yeah. This app is not a pain.
Yeah, you can search the operator's manual a lot easier than probably the hard copy book.
Well, and it does have a search feature. So, that Command F that you use in your long PDFs, your 100-page PDFs, it's available right there on your phone in the app, which I've used that feature 100 times because I don't. And sometimes you think that something should be in one section and it turns out it's in a completely another. So, being able to find that.
And the other thing that it is serial number specific, and sometimes manuals will encompass a variety of serial numbers, whereas this app does a pretty good job of honing in on your serial number.
Right. Yeah, especially part side too, because you can get a wide range, and you got the exact serial number, the exact model of your machine opens right in your parts catalog. So it's pretty nice.
Which another thing that we talked about at clinics was TruConnect, and so the ability for that to flow right into our parts ordering system that's available online 24/7, knowing exactly what part number you need for your specific machine, even if it's 1:00 in the morning or on a Sunday or whatever, and then being able to order that and have it available first thing to pick up without waiting for all the delays of being put on hold and somebody going back and do they have it and transferring it and, all the natural stuff that comes with parts. That's going to be a big game changer as well.
I think you're going to see this current generation or next generation that's coming in. It's just way more. They're used to using the apps and the technology and stuff like that. It comes easier to them that they'll start to adapt to this. These options that they've got, the True Connect and the Connect or the Equipment Mobile, using Op Center on their phone too. So just that's going to make it a lot easier for them to, in your example, finding parts. Do we have the part? Order the part. They can send somebody else up here and pick it up too.
So this is totally off subject, kind of, not really, but you weren't prepped for this when we said that we were going to do a pre-harvest equipment prep podcast episode. This was not included, but we did talk about relationships and sales and how that all plays into everybody's role. So you mentioned apps and the next generation. How do you think, in your personal opinion, nobody's going to fact check you on this, but in your personal opinion, how do you think that that's going to change those relationships, or do you think it will?
I think it'll have some aspect of there's going to be communication where I think we're going to lose some of that, and they're going to just go. I think you're seeing it already. YouTube.
Yep. Sure.
They're just going there to look for all the information first. If they're used to that, they got their phones at their fingertips, so they're just going there searching. If they can't find it, then they have the second resources to call and talk to somebody in service or parts or something like that on how to fix something, how to adjust something.
Yeah.
And we talk about that on our sales podcast. We talk about it company wide a lot with this generational change. It is the younger group that has that phone in their hands and has access to that things. It's more likely to use that technology. And you brought up YouTube. We all use YouTube on a daily basis to help us solve problems. And you'd like to think that the development of this app is definitely going to feed into that generation. How that affects the relationship with their service manager, I guess, is yet to be determined from that point forward. But it's probably no accident that app is being developed at the time that it's been developed as well, for sure.
I think that sometimes John Deere puts things out before they're quite ready. I think that happens kind of a lot. I feel like Equipment Mobile was a perfectly timed, which Equipment Mobile is a follow-up that did have a predecessor that is no longer. So this is an upgrade.
Equipment Plus, I believe is what they call
Yes, Equipment Plus. But this is quite a bit different, I would say, than Equipment Plus. There's a lot more features that have been added in. And I think it is very appropriately timed, especially with the Op Center Mobile being integrated and work plans and all of that coming to fruition. I think this is a well-timed release.
So back to the combine maintenance side of things. So just without having slides here, can you kind of go into maybe the first few things that come to mind, 4, 5, 6 things that come to your mind when getting a combine prep to go to the fields, just on the simple side of things?
Yeah, I mean, real basic stuff is, chain tensions, belt tensions. The machines today, and they've had in the past probably 10 years, had really easy guides as far as do you have it tensioned properly or not. Oil levels, filters, are they clean? Is that, filters probably, do they get cleaned enough as far as air filters on maintenance, cab air filters throughout season, engine air filters throughout the season. We get in some pretty dirty crop depending on conditions. So that's just one of those things that is probably a common thing that maybe doesn't get looked at enough. And then adjustments, whether it's crop condition related, every crop conditions from one year to the next, they're not the same. Do you have green stem beans this fall? Were your beans, more ripe last fall? Are you going to make an adjustment? Does your cutter bar need rebuild as far as your guards and your knife sections and go through the hold downs? That should be something you should do, obviously beforehand, but also every day. Just make sure that everything's not broke, in sharp order, because we do seem to harvest tougher crops. And the cutting system on your platform is kind of your determining factor, your speed of your machine and how efficient you can be with it. If you can't cut it efficiently, then your combine is not going to harvest it efficiently.
we're putting cutter bars through a lot more stress
Oh,
now than we were
absolutely.
30 years ago. The good operators, you see them, like you said, when you can't start harvesting beans at 8 o'clock because there's too much moisture out there. That's when you see these guys going through that. Like you said, their cutter bars and checking the guide heights and looking for broken sickles or worn guards. And we put those 40-foot heads through a lot of stress just strictly through travel and the amount of material we're trying to put into that combine. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, back in the 35-foot auger heads, we're driving that knife all from one side, and then with the introduction of the 40-foot draper, and all of a sudden now we're driving the knife from both sides. Now you just alleviated so much stress from driving that entire cutting system from one side. That in alone obviously helped quite a bit.
But we're harvesting faster too.
Right.
It's amazing. Our heads are bigger and we're driving faster.
Yeah, when you can have a draper head that can feed the crop evenly into the throat of the machine, you're going to pick up ground speed as long as you can cut it and feed it in efficiently.
Staying with the draper heads, what other things, or drapers are pretty common, for our customer base? What other things do we look at? Just basic stuff.
Yep, belts. Inspect belts. Tensions obviously check daily. Make sure they're staying in their range where they want to be or where they should be. And then the feed drum, just inspect, make sure that you don't have a broken finger there. The design there is if you break that finger, it's got a retainer built into it, so it'll retain it in the drum. We know running a steel finger through a rotor machine is not a good thing to do. So
You wouldn't recommend that?
I would not recommend that. It's amazing though what some objects can go through machines, and the operator said, I've heard it sounded horrible, and they'll have us come out and look at the machine and make sure there's nothing broke, and oddly enough it went through and didn't break a single thing.
Rocks.
Yeah, we've all witnessed that. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So kind of an oddball question, but just curious to your take. So when I go back to, again, 25 years ago and thinking about daily maintenance on a combine and just grease guns and greasable bearings everywhere, we don't have a whole lot of greasable bearings these days, do we?
I mean, there's your common greasable. A lot of that stayed greasable. Now, some things have went away from greaseless, such as your unloading auger, sump, lower bearings, chopper bearings. They went away from that greasing, so you are losing some. And then the hour interval on the greasing is fairly high. I mean, there's very few grease points that are actually 50 hours or less. So there's a lot of 200 hours, a lot of 400 hours, but a lot of customers I talk to, they won't stretch it that far. They've just kind of had the routine of, I'll give it maybe a shot of grease once a day or every other day just to make sure that it's still taking grease. But yeah, good point. The maintenance side of things, we as long as the customers don't overlook that stuff and just don't get so caught up in got to get going, got to get harvesting, got to make sure that everything's set up right on the display, and don't overlook the actual maintenance part of the machine because it is important.
And you brought up air filters. We talked about that at our harvest clinic, and I think it was the tech that you were working with brought up the cab filter, put a pretty big emphasis on the cab filter. I thought his point was well made, with all the black dust we have on our combines, and now with the chopping heads and maybe some tar spot and things like that think about some of that stuff. If you have a dirty cab air filter, you could be breathing that as well, and don't overlook the cab air filter.
Right.
I thought that was a great point.
Yep. Yeah, you got I'm gonna call your main cab filter, which is gonna bring the air from the outside in, and then you got your in cab recirculating air filter. So yeah, both of them. If you're in that black dusty stuff, certainly, I would definitely take a look at those cab filters and maybe change them in season, and rather than run the whole season with it.
Fun fact about the in-cab air filters. Courtney, this one's for you. Did you know that if you put your shedding dog in the cab, it can jam up a cab air filter really quickly?
I feel like you speak from experience on that one.
Well, we do see the Mackie hair all over me. So.
So it's working.
Yeah, it is working. Yeah, I will say I didn't know it was that bad, and then I got informed of that later on. And I was like,
so if you have a dog, get the HEPA pet-friendly cab filter.
They should make those. They make those for your house. They should make those for combine cabs. How many people have dogs that ride with them? I feel like the number should be higher than what it really is.
Probably a few.
Well, my dad already told me my dog's not allowed in the cab.
Well, the ones that are, those are the customers I want to see. So if anybody hears of that, be sure to call me. So we talked a little bit about beans. You want to talk about king corn a little bit? Go into that?
Yeah. So on the machine side, it's just making adjustments from going from one crop to the other. And then on the corn head itself, maintenance-wise, gathering chains, the tensions being proper, stock rolls, definitely don't overlook and see how much wear you got on the stock rolls. And there's so many different options of stock rolls out there, depending on what you're wanting to do processing-wise with that stock. And then deck plates. And then there's little grease points on corn heads anymore. They've done away with the front idler grease for quite some time. And then you've got your slip clutch, which really don't need to hardly grease your slip clutch. Maybe one or two pumps actually every 200 hours, which is a season really for most guys. It's always been a thing, even on combine. Don't over grease your slip clutch. You might make it prematurely want to slip, and then you're going the other direction as far as that goes. So and then adjustments or add-on attachments, whether your corn heads, these new ones, you got the active end fenders on them, new ways to raise or lower the ear savers on the ends, folding corn heads, from transporting down fields a lot easier without putting on header carts. That in itself, we've seen that pick up on folding 12-row corn heads. It eliminates someone having to go to a truck and trailer and to move from one field to the other. So you got little things there, maybe on folding corn heads where you've got extra grease points than you do a rigid, but
and that's kind of a thing where, like you said, you're saving in a truck and a header cart, but trade-offs, pros and cons. Right. So yeah,
a little extra maintenance certainly overweighs the extra person having to load the cart.
Yeah, especially in today where everybody seems to struggle to find an extra person, even if it's somebody to throw in a pickup truck and drive a header cart down the road. It's a struggle, so yeah.
That's when I get called.
You should already be out there, Courtney.
I'll put you on the spot. Call center. You've been on a call center for a few years. A couple years.
Yeah.
Give me three, off the top of your head, three common, and I don't know that there's such a thing as a common call on the call center, but three common calls you might expect from a combine operator during the harvest season. What are some?
There's similar themes.
Yeah, number one is not recording, and that really generates back to the 2630 displays, 2600s, when they use that display maybe in the tractor planting or spraying, and they've got that extra tab open in the documentation page. That was probably number one most common.
So solution, you go in and you remove the extra tab in the documentation, which that happens in planting as well. So
Yep.
During planting, okay.
Which, fast forward into the Gen 4, that is kind of the opposite issue. So now you're not recording. You went from not recording at all to now you're double recording,
Right.
because people try to add in an extra operation. Rather than just trusting that the one tab is enough. So,
But we don't know that until after the fact, unfortunately, usually.
correct.
So,
Yeah.
okay, so give me another one.
Oh, another one might be section control. Whether they had boundaries on the display and they got outside the boundary and now they didn't have a row plant or there's something that's not recording for section control. So we learned to kind of diagnose, okay, let's turn section control off and see if it does work or doesn't work. And go from there.
So what about row sense? I feel like we get calls on row sense as well. Can you talk a little bit about row sense, your experience with it?
Yeah, as far as on harvesting goes, performance, is it making the machine too aggressive back and forth? It usually stems from the row sense feelers that are on the corn head maybe not being adjusted properly, where the gap's maybe too large. And the stalk diameter can vary, obviously, in the field, hills and low ground, and from year to year. So,
And field to field, I mean, different varieties and pass to pass, even on some of these split row planters. So, yeah.
Yep. So I've always told guys, favor the rods a little on the tighter side, so that way it just seems to work better that way.
Where there's less play, less room for error.
And maybe it's not the rods; it's actually those divider points themselves. They have some adjustability there too. So we want to make sure that those are snugged up and don't have the play either, because if those are down, you got to go down for maybe some down crop, or you're getting down there all of a sudden now they spread further apart than where they were before. So
And if they're too far apart, I mean, they work against each other. So you are constantly doing a little bit more back and forth than what you would like to see. And then that leads people to think, oh, it's not working. Well, it is. It's just not working in the way that you want it to because of an actual mechanical problem. It goes from software and technology to more of a physical, those need to be readjusted.
Right. Yep. And with now AutoPath becoming so popular, you're starting to see it in sprayers. It's going to start working in the combines, but RowSense maybe isn't going to be needed as much. Now I think it's still going to be great for those circumstances where the row, the planter may have moved over or they're doing some custom harvesting that they can't use AutoPath. But AutoPath, what we've seen here in the last 2 years, really, it's pretty neat. It's pretty awesome the way it works.
I think RowSense will still be a nice fallback if needed, for sure. That's one of those great deer products.
It is.
Yeah, and I do think that it is important to call out that RowSense is not the replacement, or AutoPath is not the replacement for RowSense. They can easily work in conjunction with each other.
Yep.
So, and that's a big thing that I think that it's not one or the other. I mean, all of these products can create a very synonymous lineup and create for a very user-friendly experience in the cab.
Yeah.
I've tried to pinpoint some customers that's got a display, maybe has the activation they've used with RowSense on something else, or demo it really. Mm-hmm. Put the attachments on the corn head, and they never had it before. Let them run it, and they can't believe how nice it is.
Yeah.
Just going from trying to harvest the corn, or even trying to auto steer with whatever signal they may have, if it's SF1 or even RTK, it's the RowSense benefit there. They really enjoy it. Makes harvesting so much easier and less stressful.
They got to turn it on. We know that.
Yeah, speaking of common questions, that is a huge question. They need to just have a little shortcut bar. John Deere, if you're listening,
Right.
There just needs to be a little on-off, just like we have for AutoTrack. There needs to be a on-off for RowSense.
Yes.
So no more going into, your guidance and then into your advanced and turning RowSense on. That's too many steps.
It was funny because when we right after we merged and we all got on that call center, there was like 3 calls that first week on how I can't remember where to turn my RowSense on. So it wasn't obviously the easiest thing in the world to find.
Yeah, well, it's in your advanced.
Right.
And through your different models of machines, it can be in 3 different places.
Yeah, the 2630 was tricky too. Yeah.
70 series, 60 series combines. It's over here in the original brown box emulation page. And then your S series, and now into your S7 series, it's even different.
Do you see us starting to fall asleep over here because you're talking brown boxes? No.
I know that's a little before you guys.
That's you guys'
I
thing.
do know what that is, though. I have seen one.
You know what it is.
I've seen one. Can't forget, but I've seen one.
Yeah, correct. Yes. But in terms of run pages and displays that I have memorized, that Gen 4 and G5, that's...
You know what? Thank God for the brown box emulators though, because it's allowed us to use new displays in older combines.
Yeah.
Right.
Really, it's been a game changer. I mean, so we joke we have to mention brown box in almost every podcast. And
who made that rule?
I don't know. Jumping back into just general kind of combine settings and maintenance, kind of off the cuff here, Matt. It's likely we'll have some wetter corn maybe in certain parts of our AOR, maybe not in other parts. And we had a pretty broad planning date range on the calendar across our territory. But what are maybe 2 or 3 things you think about when you think about setting a combine up for higher moisture corn?
You always have the concern of grain quality when you get into higher moisture, whether it's starting at the head, so the corn head. We have to watch our deck plates, see if we need to adjust that to bring maybe a little more trash in so that it's not damaging any kernels right there. Right, cushioning, yep. Then as we go into the feeder house, obviously we're running everything on slow and corn, so they do offer the slow down kit on your feed accelerator if you want to be more gentler on bringing that in. A lot of times that's typically used in your specialty crops, popcorn and stuff like that, but you could get some benefits by slowing that down too. Swept back paddles on the feed accelerator, just not as aggressive with the serrated edges. And then really it's working then into the concave, try to a more open concave setting so you're not being so aggressive. Auger flighting, make sure your auger flighting is all in good shape. If you get sharp edges, it's going to be more aggressive on that kernel. That's going to create more fines.
And typically, obviously, wetter corn takes a little bit. It slows down the harvest process a little bit. It unloads a little bit slower.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yep. I mean, you got the adjustment a little bit in the grain tank on the cross-auger hoods to adjust there if you need to change the unload side there. But yeah, it's just
understanding that it's gonna, your process is gonna have to change just a little bit.
Right. Yeah. Yep. And I think everybody's been through wetter corn and dry corn, and they understand the adjustments maybe they have to make, and or the difference when you can get into one or the other.
I think the big thing this year is that you might see both. I mean, you can get into some really, really dry stuff, and depending where you fall just geographically and what equipment you were using and when you could get across those acres this spring, that's going to play a big part of what that range looks like.
This harvest could mimic our planting season. It was a long, drawn-out planting season. It very well could be a long, drawn-out harvest.
This is supposed to be a positive podcast, Josh.
And while we're on the topic there, I mean, varieties of the corn, just in genetics, it's changed so much. I'll have guys call me and say, hey, everything was working great, just left this field, got into another field, same maturity corn, different variety. I've got stuff, I'm just, the machine's just not performing like it was before. Well, yeah, there's just a difference in the way maybe it threshes off the cob. The moisture may be different, even though it's same maturity corn. There's just differences there, and I think those are all the challenges we see in today's world with genetics too.
We're talking genetics. Do you have anything to add agronomically?
I think he's right on. Different fertility programs, fungicides versus not fungicides, all that stuff can come into account in harvesting for sure.
We're getting closer to harvest season. Do you think that there's any potential? We haven't seen anything arise so far. Knock on wood. This is a wood table. Down corn.
Well, I mean, we had some down corn earlier in certain areas from that, I believe, the remnants of Tropical Storm Beryl. Was it Beryl? Hurricane Beryl?
Whatever it was, yeah, Beryl.
Hopefully down corn's not an issue, I think, when you have, again, a long, drawn-out spring like we had. It's got to be on your radar, down corn, because the reality is we're going to have some corn that's ready early, we're going to have some corn that's ready late, and the reality is the longer corn sits in the field, the more of a chance you have it to go down. So that's why I bring up the harvesting wet corn. I would harvest wetter corn all day long to get it out of the field.
Yep, there's a benefit there. I mean, you seem to get less loss, actual separator loss, when you can harvest a little bit on a higher moisture versus your drier corn.
Absolutely, and phantom yield loss. But the reality is, it's always worth more in the bin than it is in the field.
As far as pucks go, on draper heads, so we'll call it a puck, but it's more through parts side. It's a grain saver belt. So they started shipping from the factory to that optional belt last year, I believe it was, in 2023. And I've seen every new head come in with that grain saver belt. I don't think it's an option to get anything different. But that belt is optional to go back in previous models and add that belt. So if you're not familiar with that belt, it's kind of got raised crosshairs in the cleats of the belt to grab that free grain and prevent it from rolling off the edge and on the front of the cutter bar. So yeah, you can go all the way back to your 600 FD heads. The only difference there is you'll have to change your belt rollers, because the belts when they went to the 700 series FDs, they put a double belt guide in, so a top and bottom belt guide. So
low-hanging fruit, grain loss from a head.
Yes.
Capture that
Yep.
as easy as we can.
Yep, and every the beans just they can get knocked out of the pod, whether it's the reel coming around and hitting them or just shatter loss from the cutter bar. Sure. It all depends on where or how long that crop's been in the field, how ripe is it, and stuff like that.
Well, that's a lot.
Yeah.
A lot to think about, a lot to cover, that's for sure. And really, and ironically, it's kind of just the tip of the iceberg.
Right.
When the combine's a pretty complex machine. The heads are simple yet complex, So, and kind of final thoughts here, I guess, wrapping this up. Let's kind of shift back to inspections and again, that whole thing in your thoughts and wrapping that up again as we get into harvest and getting out of harvest again, that time to be thinking about inspection for next year.
Yeah. So the operation, they got to put a value on downtime. So if they choose not to do or have an inspection or go through their machine, if they have something break, and not everything is foreseeable. You always have those unexpected breakdowns, but if there's something that could be prevented by our team here at TRULAND Service or yourself in your own shop, just to go through ahead of time and thoroughly inspect the machine over. So I know our techs do a great job on thoroughly inspecting the combines, taking belts off, spitting idlers, checking for those possible bearing issues, belts that are in question, just anything to help prevent you from having a bad day on some probably weekend evening where we won't be reached or available possibly until the next day or even 2 days. So I really entice everybody to make sure that they get their machine inspected on a list. Like I said, some choose to do it right after harvest, get the machine cleaned up. If they want it done before the end of the year, get it on a list and just work through it that way.
And the nice thing is, it's obviously when you have a combine taken apart and inspected, it's a great time to fix stuff. But the customer also has a right to choose what things he wants to fix and what things he doesn't want to fix as well. So.
They do a great job of creating kind of a quote, estimated parts labor. So they can choose, maybe this can last another year. Maybe if it's something, flighting related or something wear, it'll get by for one more year. But it's brought to their attention. They can plan for it. And they certainly have the choice.
Uptime. That's what we're shooting for.
Uptime, efficiency, and productivity.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Big three.
These combines can be very productive if you let them, if Mother Nature and conditions allow. So don't let your equipment be the deciding factor.
Control what you can control. That's what we like to say. I want to thank Matt for joining us today. One of our great teammates. And yes, we've mentioned he's going to be shifting over to a different position in the company.
We're very sad to lose him.
You really are. You've been an awesome teammate and one of my favorites. And I feel like we probably won't get to rub shoulders that much anymore, but hopefully we can every once in a while.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. Thanks for having me on here. I love talking about this type of equipment, and it's something I've grown up with. So the last 20 years I've been around farm equipment, so it's something that it's nothing quite new.
So you will be
I'll be the service manager here at the Coldwater location.
Okay.
So are they going to let you out of the office to come help with clinics still?
I don't know if that's quite on the agenda.
Probably not.
Is Andy going to let you stay in the IS group chat?
We're going to.
I hope so, because it can be very entertaining at times.
Can you be 75% service manager and 25% IS department?
That would have to be worked out.
Even 90-10. I'd take that.
Now, thanks a bunch for joining us.
Yeah, thank you.
So thanks for joining us today. And again, thanks, Matt, for joining us. Josh, do you have any closing words?
Talk to you next time.